your Classic Metal Show right here on the ClassicMetalShow.com. That is some classic metal from the band Oz. That one was called Fortune. It's from Fire in the Brain, a band, the band Oz, which I've always called, they've been lumped into the new wave of British heavy metal sound. They're from Finland, though, so I've always called them the first wave of Finnish heavy metal. And on the line right now is a guy that I'm happy to have the fortune of speaking to. It is the drummer and the longtime member of Oz. It is Mr. Mark Ruffneck. Mark, how are you, man?
Just fine, just fine. I can explain really fast here that actually I was starting the band with our first bass player.
Okay.
So I'm the only member of this band, the first member of this band who is still alive, because the old bass player, he's not alive anymore. He's gone. He's 6 feet under. So I basically starting the band somewhere 77, something like that.
Sure. It's been a long time, and certainly Oz was always one of those bands, at least here in the States, that everybody knew that British wave of heavy metal that came. There were the obvious bands that stuck, your Iron Maidens and your Def Leppards and whatnot. But there was a ton of other bands that had that sound and that style. And Oz was one of those bands, especially Fire in the Brain. Fire in the Brain was always one of those records. And I do say records because it was an album at the time that, a lot of us had, and our friends didn't necessarily know, but you would put it on at a party or something. And people were like, wow, that's killer, man. It was such a good record for you guys. And it seemed like at least at the start, you guys started out white hot, and then like so many bands, the labels or whatever just didn't carry it on and take you to the next level. Is that pretty accurate?
Yeah, yeah, it's accurate. The point is this, that we have been unlucky in several cases during the years. This is the point. We have been there. The door is open. We're standing there, but then something happens what have nothing to do with us. Mm-hmm. But something else happens, and then we are just falling away there. But the idea is this, that of course we knew in that time Iron Maiden and this kind. Judas Priest was older band. Sure. Judas Priest is the thing. Iron Maiden, I remember when they were starting. I think they was playing somewhere in the Finland, but I've never seen in the beginning in the first years the Iron Maiden. But we know them. But how we was doing things with the Fire in the Brain album with the second lineup was this, that. Because we was getting 2 guitar players. In the first lineup, we was only having 1 guitar player. And when you have 2 guitar players, in that time, it was our dream. It sounds better. Mm-hmm. It sounds heavier. So in some sense, we was doing this new wave of British heavy metal without knowing what is what is it. So we're basically doing similar things without knowing exactly what happens in the England, because in that time there wasn't internet, there was not so big connections between the countries, so we didn't know exactly what happens. Judas Priest was the band what we know, and it was also the old band what we know, the Scorpions, Accept from German, and of course Van Halen from USA. But in that sense, a lot of smaller bands, we didn't know what happens in the streets, mm-hmm. because there existing some magazines, but it was the fan size, and then we was having only the facts. Mm-hmm. Remember, I mean, nowadays it's really interesting. I can see you, you can see me, and we can talk. And in that time, you was sending letters.
Right.
You were sending letters, and then someone was sending some pages from. We was getting letters from the USA, and sometimes some fanzines, all kinds of things. But I mean, it was taking weeks before we was getting this. Sure. And then we was record companies was discussing. They was calling to each other, and they started sending the fax. Mm-hmm. And that was, in that sense, we was living some kind of outside of the real world.
Sure.
And for example, for us, we never know anything what happens in the USA with the Fire in the Brain or Third Warning. Our record company was making contract with the Combat Records in the USA,
Right.
Sunshine Records in the Canada, some company in the Japan, and some company in the Spain and whatever. But we never know anything. We never get any kind of records or whatever. We just getting information that he signed a contract there, and then we're getting a little bit money, and everybody was happy. But we was living in Stockholm, but we didn't have any connections to the USA, Canada, or Japan.
Sure. Was there a big scene, like a big metal scene in those early days there in Finland or in Sweden? I mean, I mean, obviously, in my mind, the two big scenes at the time were England and Germany, and certainly a lot of the bands that you named, and we can both name 10 other bands from both places that came out then. Finland and Sweden. That while I know there's a lot of metal that's there now, was there back in the 80s, or were you guys doing something really different and really outside of the box of what other people were doing?
We was doing really outside of the box. We were starting in Finland. We never get any kind of record contract in Finland. So the heavy metal or this kind of heavy rock scenes was almost zero in Finland.
Okay.
Yeah. So we make our first album 82, and we was making that in Sweden. We signed contract into Sweden.
Okay.
And only place in Sweden in that time was Stockholm, the capital of Sweden. And there was a big, we say, rock business system.
Okay.
Totally different compared with the Finland, because in that time Finland was totally Russia. It was nothing big things happening in the music business at all. It was desert. And that's why we was moving from Finland to Stockholm after Fire in the Brain 83, because in Stockholm is a big city, there's happening things. In Finland, nothing happens.
Sure.
So that in the beginning of the 80s, there was a big difference compared with Sweden and Finland. Nowadays it's similar, but in that time it was totally different. And this kind of heavy metal, or we say heavy rock scene, starting in the Stockholm, and it was starting basically same time when we was there. We was also pioneer in there, because before us it was only Heavy Load who was making records. They are older band than we. After us starting game, same time as we was recording their 83, start to come also Swedish bands.
Okay.
And recording. There was some bands what probably was some months before us. But I mean, we was also in this first phase in Stockholm. And then it's getting bigger and bigger. And because that Stockholm, Sweden is music system already there in music business because of ABBA. Mm-hmm. The whole thing is there. The whole Swedish music business is starting with the ABBA and Stickan Andersson. This is a starting point, and that's why Sweden and Finland is totally different countries, because it's already starting with ABBA. There was a lot of good studios in the 80s and a lot of different things what happening. And Sweden is also a bigger country compared with Finland, and they have this kind of music business and making business in their brain. And that's why the music business was totally different. And then it's starting this rock and heavy metal area. And then we was getting the first hit from Stockholm, Europe.
Right. Isn't that interesting that heavy metal in an area got started by a pop band?
yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's true. But I mean, the Heavy Load was starting. They are older band than we. When we was moving there, then it's Swedish record companies were starting to do these things. Mm-hmm. And I remember when Europe was winning some kind of competition in Sweden, in Swedish TV. And we was looking this and said, this is not so good. Right. And then I remember when they was releasing this Final Countdown album, because I mean, they was a rock band in the beginning, sure. But we was in the Hard Rock Cafe when they was having this really release party, mm-hmm. And they starting to play the first time this Final Countdown.
Right.
And we standing there, whole Oz is standing in the bar and drinking beer and saying, what fuck is this? what fuck is this? They have losing their mind. This is what is this?
Right.
Because everybody was laughing for this song at what is this? And nowadays we know it's nothing to laugh anymore, because I mean that this song have made that everyone of the band is still living well.
Sure.
Yeah. But I remember because they was much harder band before this album when they was making. So this Final Countdown song was totally outside of course they was playing more melodies and maybe softer music compared with ours, but anyway there was more rock in the beginning. Sure. But this Final Countdown was totally jumping to the new. And after Europe start the other bands also coming out from Stockholm. So basically it's starting getting more and more. And that's the story.
Sure. And it's funny that you mentioned how Europe, changed or sold out or whatever you want to call it and found success, because that's the exact blueprint, really. If you look at Def Leppard did the same thing. They were a very aggressive, hard band at the beginning, and then they started making pop songs, and people laughed at them too, I'm sure, when they did Love Bites or Pour Some Sugar on Me. And boy, they're not laughing now that Def Leppard sold 100 million records.
Exactly. This is the point. This is the point. What's happening with the Europe, that they're getting so popular, and in the end, when you're playing in the rock band, you like to be popular.
Right.
I mean, it's much fun to play shows in the ice hall compared that you're playing in the little clubs.
Right. Sure.
Yeah. In some sense.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Mark, let's move forward to move forward with Oz. The band had a pretty decent run, and then you guys went away for a while, and then in 2010 you guys came back. You put the lineup back together. What brought you guys back together to restart the band?
It's me.
Okay.
The point is this: that 91, when we was putting Oz. We were stopping the playing together, because 91 it's getting Nirvana, what this kind of style music. So this kind of traditional heavy metal was somehow fading out. Right. And we are also getting old. We was getting girlfriend, get married, get children. Right. You know the situation. Right. You know the situation. So I was saying the singer Abe that. Let's take a little bit break and wondering what to do. And we was wondering more than 25 years. Mm-hmm. So I started study in the university. So we was stopping basically. I was stopping with the music, but Abe was still singing in some local bands and like this. And then after 20 years, I get in the situation that I couldn't get my professor position in the university, so I was standing again by myself in the middle of Stockholm, wondering what to do. And then somehow I was getting this that, well, I can anyway play drums, and I don't know how, maybe I met something, but it was like this that I start discussing, and then I called to the Jay, who have been moved back from the New York to the Finland, and asking if he's still writing the heavy metal songs, and he was sending demos to me, and then I said, maybe we can do something together. I have to check if I can play drums. So I was playing drums by myself maybe 3 months to get things back after 20 years. Right. And then we was just planning to make some songs, and then it's getting more involved, and in the end we was standing there with the album Burning Leather.
Sure. And you did Burning Leather, and after Burning Leather you kind of retooled the lineup. Ape left, and I forget, somebody else left. I think most of the band left, and you rebuilt the band. What now that you've had what Transition State, and now the new release with this lineup, do you feel like this lineup has gelled together now, and that you're comfortable with Oz in its current formation?
Yeah, now, yeah. If we compare this album, and Transition State was the first album with this lineup.
Right.
Of course, this album making this Forced Commandments was really, really different, because Transition State was somehow save the project and get the album ready.
Okay.
Because in the beginning we was planning that Abe was still singing in the Transition State.
Sure.
But he jumped out and start to be with his family. So he is a family man. So we find Vince's connection to singer, and he was singing Transition State without knowing the things that he should be there. And this album, of course, it's better because we have been playing together now several years, and now we make the album that we know that everybody know in the beginning that we making in studio, you doing this and you doing this. Sure. So of course this album was much easier to do compared with the Transition State.
Sure. And do you find now, and I know you know this, Mark, a lot of fans will always relate the singer to the band, and and Ape was a big part of Oz, but yet Vince has a sound that's his own. It's not like he's trying to do a karaoke thing. He has a sound that is his own, but also has some elements of the past stuff. Do you find that fans have been, accepting of Vince in the band?
Yeah, I'm a fan with him because in that sense that he's a clever guy and he's quite easy person to work in the studio.
Okay.
He's extremely technical person to sing. At the same time, of course, they are different person. They sounds different, but they have a little bit similarities. It's this that they both singing really high.
Sure.
So of course, the Vince is different compared with the Ape. But when we also playing old songs and Vince is singing those, it's not so bad. So it sounds okay. So, but he when he's starting in the Transition State, he asking how I like to him to sing. I say, sing as you like. Right. You are your person. So somehow Vince match this thing what we like to do, and somehow we have been growing together in some directions that we are not going in different directions. That is, yeah. But of course we sound now different compared with the old O's, but I mean, it should be. I mean, when we was making albums in the 80s, we can try to make the same albums as we was doing 35 years ago.
Sure. Yeah, even if you had the exact lineup from 1982, it wouldn't sound the same today just because you're
no.
And I don't think you guys have that I don't think any band has that fire that you guys had in the 80s, man. That was
no. It was it's totally different. When you are 21 years old and then you are 58 years old, of course I'm a different person.
Sure. Yeah. Now, Mark, I got to ask you as a drummer, and as a drummer that's, in your late 50s, I played drums for a little bit. I'm 51, and I played drums for a little bit in my 20s, and I sucked. I'll just admit it. I was not a good drummer at all. But I know even in my 20s, if you play an hour and a half, that is a beating. You come off the stage and you're just tired. I can't even imagine what it's like now in your 50s. Look, I hurt getting out of bed. I can't imagine going and playing a show in your 50s. Is it a much harder process now to play drums, as you get older?
Yes, it is, but it was the same. It was the different thing because when I start playing before maybe 2010, it's 10 years ago, when I start play drums again, I was learning to play drums and I playing a little bit easier way compared how I was playing when I was 20. Because I mean, when I was in the Fire and the Brain, Third Warning, this period of life, I was hitting so hard that I could.
Sure.
So it was a technically nice way to play, but it was when you are 20, you can do miracles. Sure. And now I'm a little bit clever, and my idea is okay, I have to fix this, and I try to find the easy way how I can fix it. So sure. I'm using this clever way to play, but of course I'm not playing as heavy anymore compared with when I was 20. And of course I'm still can play drums, and it's probably because I have been playing so many years drums that I have the idea. But of course it's basically it's a little bit dangerous every time when you're going and playing 1 hour drums. I can be dying. You never know. Of course, It's totally different. And I know I have only a few years left. I mean, then it's gone. I can't. I mean, It's extremely stupid. I mean, I can keep on playing and having this band as long I can play reasonable way. But when I can't, I mean, then it's no reason anymore if you can't do things, you know. I mean, I have seen the drummers who playing drums when they are too old and it sounds terrible. Sure. And then you are just stupid. Why you are there? I don't know. But they like to do it, but it sounds really bad. So as long I can handle it in the reasonable level, I can do it. But when I can't, then I give up. That's the point. See.
Absolutely. Now, Mark, you know, obviously the new release is getting ready to come out, Forced Commandments, which is the brand new record. It's 11 tracks, which is, and it's if you're a fan of classic metal, there's no way really you won't like it. It's a very solid classic sounding metal album. You know, obviously it's coming out at a very strange time for all of us in the world with everybody being locked in and whatnot. Is that going to hurt the band because the album comes out at such a weird time, or is it actually helpful because a lot of people that might not even know of the history of Oz may hear it because they're at home and just kind of looking for something to entertain themselves with?
I have been thinking this, and I can say that I don't know what happens, and the point is this, that I have and the whole band, we have just hang there and keep us alive. And I was telling the guys, because the boys is living in Finland, I'm living in Sweden, we even meet. You understand? I'm at the country, I can't go to Finland. There is nothing what I can do. So we can't play together. Only thing what we can do, we can speak in the telephone or the internet. But the point is this, that we was planning totally different. And then when this system is coming, now we don't know. And we focusing the system that, okay, we release this album, we go out and play when it's possible. Maybe we make more music and recording something else. I don't know but we doing all the time. We have several ideas to new music. So it's I mean, you have to do something because you don't know exactly when the normal life is coming back.
Right.
So I don't know if it's better or if it's worse for us, but I believe that it's bad for the big bands who is making touring, because we are not touring so much. I mean, this is really bad for example, Iron Maiden.
Sure.
And Judas Priest. I mean, they getting 1 year older. This is the big trouble from the Iron Maiden.
Mm-hmm.
I'm joking, but you understand, if they waiting 1 year, everybody is 1 year older. One day they are too old to play.
Right.
So all these old guys, it's same with the CC Top. Think the guys, 1 year is a big. They like to go and play somewhere, now they can't.
Mm-hmm.
Rolling Stones, I mean, can they survive this? Rolling Stones have been surviving everything, but can they surviving this? I mean, they also was planning to make some tour, but I mean, 1 year for the guys in the Rolling Stones it's longer compared your and mine.
Sure.
Your and mine year is shorter compared, because they have only a little bit left.
Right.
We have a little bit, hopefully we have a little bit more left. But I mean, now a lot of bands is in the end of the game. They are there, everyone. And if they have to stay away 1 year, it's taking a lot of things away. Mm-hmm. So I think for us, it's easier compared with this band, what is even older. They have really panicked because it can happen that they never going to play any more.
Sure. No, you're absolutely right. Well, I tell you what, Mark, the new album is called Forced Commandments. It is by the band Oz. And I thought we would end this interview by playing the first single, which is called Prison of Time. What can you tell us about this song?
This is really funny thing. It's Johnny was writing the lyrics. He was writing all lyrics, and he was writing this without knowing the situation where we are right now. But basically, we are a little bit prisoner of time, everyone in the world. So this is quite funny things that if you're looking a lot of other things, what is in this Forced Commandments album, it start getting really scary, because if you're looking the other songs, it's getting worse. So I mean, this thing is, we didn't know what happens when this album was ready. We didn't know when we was having cover pictures, when I was getting the name for the things. I was saying this should be scary things, but it's not violence, but scary things, something going to happen, what is bad. You're getting the forced commands. Now we have the forced commands, everyone.
Right.
We have to do things because someone is forcing our commands, what we're doing. So Prison of Time is basically, we didn't know the situation, but it's basically really fun that it's working well in situation how we're living right now.
Sure. Well, let's check it out right now. It is Oz. The name of the song is Prison of Time, right here on your Classic Metal Show.